All right, let's talk about the goddess Kali, also known as Kali Ma from ancient India. Right. I'm gonna relay some of this information that my teacher taught me. I learned about Kali from a very good teacher. And so the basic premise of it is that Kali is all about separation from the ego.
Right.
And that's why Kali has a severed head in her hand, because this head represents the ego. She cuts off the ego. She decapitates the ego.
What is she putting the head in? What is that?
Well, it's a bowl underneath the head catching the blood. You see she has 4 arms in this picture. Mm-hmm. And there's a sword, and she has her foot on her husband Shiva's chest, and we're going to get into that.
Okay.
Right, so Kali is the great mother, the divine feminine.
Right.
Which is infinite and eternal darkness.
Right.
She is that primordial dark womb that birthed everything in creation. She's that primal feminine force. And darkness is feminine because it gives birth to light, and light is physical form.
Yeah.
And so remember we talked about how Billy Carson points out that all material objects in physical form are made of light.
Yeah.
So even if you're in a dark room in the middle of the night with the lights turned off and the curtains closed and you can't see anything with your physical eyes, but you can feel the furniture with your hands, the furniture you're feeling is still made of light.
Yeah.
All things are made of light.
It's physical.
Right. It's vibration, movement, slowed down, which is what subatomic particles are.
Right.
Right. So Kali is the primordial womb, the maternal darkness of all things. And all things are light. Light is consciousness. Like, for example, the brain runs on electricity, the mind is light, and the ego is the awareness of self.
Right.
So before there was a physical universe as we know it, in the very beginning, there was only the triple darkness of space, the 9 ether melanin, which is pure chaos.
Right.
Darkness, primordial water.
Right.
The chaotic waters before time. And everything in physical form as we know it began with the first spark of light, which was the first atom from movement in the dark energy. And this is the meaning of Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, which says, "Darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." Right. So spirit is frequency and water is a current or a wave.
Yeah, it moves.
Right. So that's what we're talking about. It's how physical form as we know it came into being. Right. So this means that the primordial dark water vibration emitted itself into light to become physical form, for itself to be aware of itself in physical form.
Right.
Just like you were born from your mother's dark womb, and your frequency gave itself a physical vessel to be aware of itself in this physical realm, which is your body.
So the dark womb.
Right. That's where we all came from.
Yes.
Right. So we're talking about light taking on the form of individual being, which is ego.
Ego.
Right. So that's what ego is, the sense of individual self in physical form. Right. So looking at this picture here, right? You see the picture. We see Shiva and Kali, who are husband and wife, right? And we see the goddess Kali with her foot on her husband Shiva's chest here.
Yes.
Right. And why is this? Why does Kali have her foot on the god Shiva's chest?
Well, we don't know right now, but we'll find out.
Real soon. Right. All right, so we're going to break this down. In darkness, you can create your own light rather than be led by another's light.
Right.
In darkness, you're free to have your own blank canvas to create within your own God space. Only in darkness is there complete freedom.
Right.
Right. Light always comes with limitations.
Yes.
Because light is physical dimensional form, which is the experience of the ego in the material universe. Light is information because things come into formation via light.
Right.
In formation. Right. Revealing the material perceptions to the mind. Light reveals what is physical and seen here. Right. Plants receive information from light to take form, just like we do.
Right.
Right. So when the 9 ether melanin dark energy gave birth to a new version of itself to experience itself as a light being in 3rd dimensional density, it started acting out in its lower nature by giving itself limitations with light, becoming physical.
So it had limitations.
Right. And that's how it's experiencing itself as an ego, is by having limitations.
Okay.
Right. And so this is what we would call ego.
Right.
Okay. So you are the universe experiencing itself as you right now. I am the universe experiencing itself as me right now.
Right.
And when the ego realizes this,
Yes.
this is what we call enlightenment.
Enlightenment.
Right. Enlightenment. The ego becomes enlightened when the ego realizes this higher level of esoteric truth. When the ego realizes that all is one and that there is no actual separation, even though the experience of the ego is an individual separate from other things.
Right.
But when the ego comes to this higher level of realization, this is what we call enlightenment, right?
Right.
So Shiva is the enlightened God, realizing that he is everything in consciousness and that everything is consciousness, coming to this realization.
So everything is consciousness.
Everything, this table we're sitting at, the
Right.
clothes you're wearing, this device we're recording this on.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing he is the all, Shiva is everything. By knowing this, perspective is key.
Right.
So Shiva is boundless light,
Right.
right? And this is why Shiva is the god of creation and destruction. Shiva represents creation and destruction, because creation and destruction are ultimately the same thing. If we go into the Taoist philosophy, life and death are the same thing.
Right.
They're not polar opposites. Everything just has an ebb and flow and keeps
Right.
going, right? So from destruction, something new begins. From destruction, something is created. So
Right.
destruction and creation are the same thing. And this is what Shiva represents as boundless light in his enlightened state.
Right.
Right? So all boundless light is creation and destruction.
Yeah.
Right? And that boundless light is still held within the womb of the void because the darkness still encompasses everything. And Kali is that void. Kali is that contraction. Kali is that 0 point, that 9 ether melanin of all creation.
So Kali's a contraction.
Right.
So, okay.
Right. She is Mama.
Okay.
Right? So because Shiva is the enlightened God, he is going to become pure love. That's what's happening in this picture here. Shiva is becoming pure love in his enlightenment.
Right.
Being a God, being a unique individual, being in ego form, how is Shiva going to become pure love? What is Shiva going to do to become pure love? Well, when you go back to the void, to the darkest of dark where there's no light and it's completely formless, then you can be anything you want to.
Right.
Like in meditation, for example, when you close your eyes and you're not visually aware of your surroundings, the surroundings are technically not there because you're in a different state of consciousness. So the darkness itself is conscious.
Right.
The darkness is aware of itself, and it had to come down into physical form to experience itself as light in physical form.
So it's like darkness of itself.
Right, of itself,
Of
exactly.
itself.
Right. So Shiva is the light and Kali is the darkness. They are husband and wife. They complement each other.
So wait, so the husband Shiva,
He's the light.
He's the light and Kali's darkness, right?
So Shiva knows that his higher self is guiding him, and his higher self is Kali, the darkness.
Right.
Right? This is your story. You are Shiva. I'm Shiva.
Right.
This is your hero's journey on a path of enlightenment. Right? So Shiva is completely letting go, and that's what this is about, surrendering to knowing that all is within him, which is going into the subconscious mind, going into the darkness. So in separating himself from the ego, Shiva is eliminating separation and embracing unity.
Right.
Now that sounds paradoxical, it sounds maybe contradictory. In separating himself from the ego, he is embracing the unitive state.
Yes.
And all is one. There is no separation.
Right.
Right. Okay. So, and he is becoming enlightened by embracing the darkness. It sounds paradoxical, right? We're going to break this down. So this is rising above the duality and coming into the unitive state, right? This is a process of severing the ego, rising above the ego. So this is about the death of the ego. So Shiva is going to become nothing to become everything. You have to become no thing to become everything.
Right.
Right. So it's becoming God.
Right.
Right. The creator. And this is his wedding to Kali. This is his marriage to the Dark Mother. And he becomes one with her in marriage.
Right.
Right. Separating from his ego, separating from his lower self is signified by his love for the dark womb. Because Kali is the dark womb. Kali is the all.
So Kali's all.
everything.
She's the dark.
She's mama. She birthed everything.
Right.
Right. Kali is the dark and the light because she gave birth to it. So she's not separate from her creation. She's not separate from what she gave birth to because separation is an illusion.
Right.
Light is just an expression of darkness, so essentially the light is the darkness.
Yes.
They're one and the same thing. Shiva and Kali become one with each other. The unity of light and dark in unconditional love. That's what you're seeing in this picture here.
Right.
Right. And Kali is all of it. She's the true dark and the true light, as well as she is also the false dark and the false light.
Right.
Because she gave birth to all of it. So all of it, whether positive or negative on any sort of polarity or duality that we can express or conceive, is birthed from her womb for her sake.
Right.
Right. So Kali is the real and she is the illusion. She's all of it because she's the mother of it all. And so Shiva is severing the ego by rising above the illusion.
So he's rising above the illusion.
Right. That's what this is about.
Okay.
So Shiva, being the enlightened God aware of all unity, embodies both the true light and the false light. He embodies everything now.
Yes.
Right? You become aware that you are also your enemies and those opposed to you. You're also the earth. You're also the universe. You're everything.
Right.
Right. You're the truth and the falsehood. It's all within you because separation's an illusion.
Right.
Right. It's all what we call different polarities being expressed of yourself. So Shiva's coming into this realization and he surrenders the false light by letting go of it because that's the illusion. Right. And what is false light? False light is the egotistical things of the illusionary material world.
Right.
Right? And having the strength to let go of these things is ascension to true power. So Shiva achieves true power because he surrenders the ego, symbolized by laying on the ground and having Kali's foot upon his chest.
Right.
Right. Now, see in the picture here, her foot is upon his heart.
Right.
Right here, right?
Right here.
Kali's foot is on Shiva's heart. This means that Shiva has achieved such a high state of consciousness that he has emptied his heart of any and all egotistical attachments. Her foot is on his heart because it symbolizes that nothing weighs upon his heart. There is no false light in his heart. That's what this means.
So
he has let go of the false light, and that's why he has laid down, surrendering to the dark mother, which is his wife in this sense.
Kali is putting her foot on Shiva's heart.
Right, that's what this means. Meaning that he is not attached to any sense of separate individuality of the egotistical material world. Right? He sees through the illusion. He doesn't identify with the ego. He knows that there's no separation and that all matter is a series of electromagnetic impulses that doesn't actually exist, but it's a perception like a dream, right? The heart signifies what you love, right?
Right.
So he loves his own higher self who is her.
Right.
Thus he becomes one with her by surrendering his heart to her. And this is why her foot is on his heart, because he gives his heart to her. This is how he loves her. And she is his higher self.
Right.
He doesn't have anything of the lower earthly realm weighing on his heart. He has released all of that in no longer identifying with the ego, but rather identifying with the all, which is her. She's the all because she birthed everything.
Right.
And this marriage to her is the greatest love of all, like Whitney Houston, the greatest love of all. And this is why Kali is often depicted holding a severed head, because it symbolizes severing the head of the ego. Right?
Right.
That's the dead head of the ego she's holding.
So that's what she's holding.
Right there, right. And that's the ego's blood dripping into the bowl.
Yeah.
Right. So that sense of individual pride or separation has been cut off because it is an elevation to a higher level of consciousness.
Right.
Now, you might recall when we studied the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, remember that?
Yeah.
Also known as the Kemetic Book of Coming Forth by Day. We did a video on that.
Right.
Right, we did 2 videos on it actually. Now, remember we read the 42 negative confessions in it?
Right.
And in the 42 negative confessions of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, what are some of the things it says? Remember, you read it in the video we did.
Right.
I have not stolen. I have not committed murder. I have not assaulted anyone. I have not committed adultery. I have not lied. I have not attacked any man, etc.
Yeah.
And the 42 negative confessions of the Egyptian Book of the Dead is where the 10 Commandments of the Bible is borrowed from, actually.
So
this is the origin of it.
So there's 42 of them, negative.
Right. We did a video on it. And so what is the meaning behind this? What is the meaning behind these 42 negative confessions in the Egyptian Book of the Dead? Why is Ani saying that he's never done any of these things? It's because in death he is acknowledging that the ego may have done these things, but his soul has not done any of these things. So in death he is acknowledging that the earthly life he lived is only an illusion that his soul experienced.
Right.
Right. Your true self has never even incarnated here.
Right.
Your true self isn't even sitting here at this table right now having this talk, making this video.
Yeah.
Right. Your ego might have done all of these things. Your ego is sitting here at this table having this talk.
Right.
But your soul hasn't even done any of these things. It's like this life, this earthly existence, as we refer to it as, is just like a video game that your soul is playing.
Right.
So it's like if you shot somebody in the video game, you didn't really do that, but the character in the game did it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why this earthly life is, and that's why this earthly life should be taken very lightly. It's not to be taken serious because it's an illusion. It isn't actually happening.
Right.
It's a dream your soul is having. Your true self hasn't even done any of these things that your ego has done. Your soul is innocent. Your soul is not blamable. It's only the ego that's done these things. The key here is perspective, that you are not the ego.
Right.
It's the angle of how you look at it.
Right.
And so in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it tells us that in death, your heart will be weighed on a scale against a feather.
Right.
And it says that if the feather is heavier, you go to heaven, and that if the heart is heavier, you go to hell. Right.
Right.
So in order to go to heaven, your heart has to be lighter than a feather. Right. This means that nothing can weigh on your heart.
Right.
In order to ascend.
Right. We learned about this in school, like in social studies.
The Egyptian Book of the Dead. See? And that's, I told you, Gnosticism is everywhere, even in the school you go to. Right? So this means that to ascend, you have to be willing to let go of any attachments that are important to the ego. Right? So you can't be attached to any of these things. You can't take any of these things with you, because if you remain attached, then you didn't see through the illusion.
Right.
If you identify with the ego and you believe that all of this is real and you take it seriously, you know, then that means that unfortunately you didn't see through the illusion.
Right.
Right. So you have to be able to let go. That's what this is about, right? Right. So nothing can weigh on your heart. The feather has to be heavier. Right. If your heart is heavier than the feather, that means you're attached to all of these things, and all kinds of false light is weighing on your heart. Right?
Right.
So we're talking about being able to let go. So Shiva's heart is lighter than the feather on the scale in the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Right.
He has released anything weighing on his heart that he's attached to by surrendering to the all, which is the dark mother that birthed everything.
Right.
One is not truly living when they are clinging on to attachments. One is not truly living when the ego is in the driver's seat. It's only when you learn to let go that you truly live.
Right.
Right? And so this is why Kali has her foot on his heart, meaning that any false light has been defeated.
Right.
Right? Nothing weighs upon it. It has been subdued to where the ego has now been severed.
Right.
You see?
That's why there's a head right there.
Right, and that's from another story about a demon that Kali killed that kept on reproducing itself every time it bled. Right, that she's draining the blood into the bowl, meaning that it can no longer reproduce itself. This symbolizes getting off the wheel of 84. Right, because if you die in a state of attachment and identifying with the ego, what's going to happen? You're not going to be returned to pure love.
No.
You're going to come right back here to do this all over again. So she ends, by severing the ego, she ends the cycle of reincarnation. Buddha says reincarnation is hell, but you got to keep on doing it until you can finally get the hell out of here, right? So Kali teaches us to let go of the ego. Kali severs the head of the ego. Death is change and transformation, and Kali is death.
Right.
True unconditional love is change and transformation. True unconditional love is death.
Right.
Death is actually the purest form of love there is. Death is the greatest love of all.
Right.
This is what you're seeing here in this depiction here. To be able to let go of attachments is the greatest love there is. Kali is the greatest love there is, right?
So she's the greatest love.
The greatest love of all. Remember we talked about the ancient Upanishads?
Yeah.
And the Upanishads tell us, of ancient India, the Upanishads tell us in the beginning there was death.
Right.
Before there was anything else. Right? Before there was ever a universe as we know it.
Right.
Change and transformation is the only reality there is.
Right.
Change and transformation is death. Death is the only reality there is. All there is pure love. Death is pure love, and that's all there is.
Right.
When you pass away, you are going to be reunited with pure love.
Yes.
You will know when you pass away that the wind and the birds and the bees and the leaves and the trees and the grass and the flowers loves you.
Right.
You've always been loved. You are unconditional love. That's what it is, right? So death is not a negative thing, not a bad thing in the way it's looked at in Western culture or Western society.
No.
Like, you realize how many people are trying to cling on to this and take this so seriously, taking pharmaceuticals, like just trying to prolong their stay here. They're clinging on to hell and avoiding true love.
Right.
You see, like this is a diseased mind state the way it's looked at in Western society. They look at death as something to stay away from, that it's bad. You know,
like everything is true love to you.
Everything is true love.
Right.
That's what you have to, that's what Shiva is realizing. Right? So we can take a deep breath and know that everything is good because everything is true love. Darkness, which is pure love, which is Kali, encompasses everything.
Right.
So all praise be to the great mother, the great black mother.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right. All right, we're going to take turns doing some reading. We have 2 books which are both on the topic of the dark divine feminine. We have Yogic Secrets of the Dark Goddess, this book right here. And we've got this other book, Longing for Darkness, Tara and the Black Madonna.
Right.
So we're going to read from both of these books here. Let's start with this book. We'll go to this page right here. Go ahead and start reading from here, son. Go ahead.
Okay, so as Jagad's Yoni, universal womb, the Divine is the Mother Infinite, who is the origin of the whole world. Kali is a Yonija, the all-pervading mother, not born of any womb, but born of her own self. The Yoni emerges, energies form a spiraling vortex around the Shiva lingam. Within the energies of its vortex, Shiva remains the point of detachment, the still point which is immovable, whilst everything revolves around it.
That's key. Shiva remains the point of detachment from the ego, ascending to a higher level of consciousness, becoming Buddha. Shiva becomes the still point which is immovable, whilst everything revolves around it.
Its expansion into the universal creative Shakti takes form as Prakriti, Mother Nature, who is the womb of all material manifestation.
Right.
Kali is first of all the great Yoni, the womb of space, in which all beings in all worlds are held, conceived, and nourished. And into the folds of her cosmic womb, they must all return.
Right.
Kali is Visvagarbha.
That's an Indian word.
Right. One who holds the universe in her sacred womb, expanding our minds into the most distant horizon, to its farthest reaches of space beyond the galaxies. One can touch the womb of infinity, entering Kali's mystic realm. Kali is Sunya, the absolute void. Even in the void, her lotus face captures the smile of eternal bliss.
Right. So that's paradise. That's heaven.
Right.
The dark womb.
So Kala Yoni is great womb of time, an eternal essence through which all beings take birth, live, and return to at the moment of death. Kali is Kalabha, the expression of time, one whose energy, though infinite, limitless, and unrestricted, becomes limited and discriminatory. through the senses of time.
Because she gives birth to it. So there is complete limitlessness in the dark womb, but the dark womb gives birth to what is limited, which is the illusion for us to experience it.
Right. So time destroys everything, and Macaulay in her manifestation of time is awe-inspiring. As Shaktarupa, Kali is the existing form of power.
Right.
So there is genuine fear and dread in Kali's fierce imagery depicted through her pictures and icons. Yet as the creatrix, initiator, and universal originator, she is reassuring in her blessings in the way of sympathy or compassion, as well as granting boons of good fortune. Kali as Kama Rupini, the form of Kama, takes the shape of every wish, fulfilling its deepest desires.
Right, so Kali is very compassionate and loving. She's the mother. The reason why it looks like something violent or grotesque, like she has swords and they're bloody and she's cutting off a head, because that is how it comes across or manifests to the ego who is attached. Right? From the human perspective of being attached to the ego, it's going to manifest as something violent or grotesque. Because you're attached and you don't want to let go. And Kali seriously severs the head of the ego. Now I'm going to read, my turn to read this page over here. The garland of skulls adorned her neck, holds the beauty and immortality of flowers, allowing the soul to carry their fragrant essence into another birth. She has, you notice in the picture, we have the picture over here, she has the skulls around her neck, right? The flowering of awareness in death takes us beyond the fears of life by experiencing its subtler nuances. What is Mahakali Shiva's Shakti? The dark goddess form is Gayarupini, these Indian words. The secret knowledge of non-duality. The Devi is Shiva's power of expression because she explicitly defines Shiva's energies. Shiva doesn't have any expression of his own. Kali is the expression of his eternal truth. She has the innate power to hold Shiva, and through her grace takes us to Shiva. Because she gives birth to everything, including him. She is not a reality apart from her Lord. One must seek Kali in Shiva and Shiva in Kali. All right, and now we'll be reading from this book, Longing for Darkness, Tara and the Black Madonna. This book is about the dark divine feminine in general. And so you can go ahead and start reading from this page right here. Son, go ahead.
So Kali sprung from Durga, Kali the death dealer and life giver, the end and beginning of time.
She's the life giver because when you separate from the ego and separate from attachments, that's when you truly live.
So she was a deity of such proportions as I heard only God, the Father in Christianity, described.
Throughout this book, she describes growing up as a Catholic, and it's a patriarchal system in which she felt oppressed as a woman.
So the fact that Kali is dark and female turned my Catholic upbringing inside out. She is naked, sky-clad, because she has stripped away illusion.
So that's why she's naked in the picture. She's stripped away the illusion of the material world or the ego.
So some say to her nothing is hidden. Some say she is black because black is the color in which all distinctions are dissolved. Others say she is black because she is eternal night. The Tantra of Great Liberation tells us that she is creator, protector, and destroyer, all in one. So unless one comes to know Kali, it is said that the desire for liberation is futile. So Kali is the darkness before time and the formless dark that will come again. Kala means time and she devours it. Terrible black, Kali with her long red tongue lolling out of her mouth, a necklace of skulls, earrings of children's corpse, her forearms with weapons, hair flying, upright, naked, in the midst of a great ecstatic dance on Shiva. Her consort's sleeping body, or was it his corpse? I didn't know. I didn't understand. I was shocked, most of all because I recognized these images. They were familiar, though I didn't know from where seeing them was like the experience of finding words for feelings that I had long held but had never been able to express. In Kathmandu, they seemed to be all around me, painted on the sides of buildings, in temples, statues, books, paintings, postcards, the hotel lobby, souvenir shop. They broke through and knocked down the false images I had of myself. They stripped me off the veneer of nicety. Nicety. I saw Kali frenzied, embattled, destroying everything in sight. And Durga, regal in her finery, demure, serene, calm, and deadly. I saw them both in me. Kali and Durga were like mirrors reflecting back anything I had been afraid
of in myself. Right. And so the Ouroboros symbol, which is the serpent eating its own tail.
Right.
This is similar because as you read up here, it says Kala means time and she devours it. So she devours her own creation in a way. Now it's my turn to read. I'm going to read something from this page over here.
Okay.
Kali and the Black Madonna at Einsiedel are somehow connected. And because Kali and Tara are connected, the Black Madonna is connected. However remotely that might be to Tara as well. The uncovering of her roots in Isis, often depicted as black, deepens and includes the obvious, the possibility of an African source as well for the Black Madonna, right? So actually, Kali is Isis. It's another version of the divine feminine, which also represents melanin or nine ether, the original woman who is the Most High, who gave birth to everything. And I want to read this section right here. I was not alone in the desire for another kind of God. Longing for darkness, which is the name of this book. So it says, longing for darkness was also a longing for the womb of God. The Buddhists call it emptiness. It is the female principle. One could also say this womb, this emptiness, is the Buddha Tara in her many forms.